Dreams are more interesting than movies, TV, books. More interesting than just about anything. And the reason is that when you watch a movie, you know it was created by a lot of people, and yet it was deliberately created by people who were setting out to create a movie. And they try to come up with a plot that's interesting, characters that are interesting, actors who are interesting to watch. But you know it was all, you know who created it. But in dreams, we don't know where they come from. We don't know what's creating them. And that in itself makes dreams more interesting than movies. Because no matter how interestingly or well done a movie is done, you know it was deliberately created. But who and what is creating the dream experience? The dream experiences, which often are every bit as complex as any other experience in our waking reality, and certainly any other experience that we watch when we're watching a movie. So the question of what creates, is it our mind, and what part of our mind, and how and why? And if not, if it's images that are being captured or transmitted somehow through some sort of a psychic telepathy or something, that too is extremely interesting. But either that is true and that's very interesting, or it's not true and it still makes it very interesting of then how and why do our minds manufacture these often complete and complex realities. And there's a number of things that specifically make dreams interesting too. A number of different different aspects of dreams that make them interesting. One of them is about how logic can exist and the different layers of self. For instance, you can be having a discussion in a dream. Now, when you wake up, even if you remember this discussion, often the things that are being discussed are things that you have not only don't make sense, but you try to wonder, well, why would I ever have been discussing this situation, these things with this person? I don't even know who that person was, but I was having this intent discussion with this person in this dream about this thing that I would never have a discussion about. And why? Why does that happen? And why is and the discussions can involve a sort of a formulation of logic. Like you might be arguing, you might be discussing, you know what? You can't, if you mix water with jelly, then you can't fly. So, in the dream, this makes perfect sense. In the dream, what seems to be the rational mechanism of your mind that would ordinarily take things that logically lead to put together will lead to a logical conclusion. That same process seems to happen in your dreams, even though when you wake up, the elements of those things don't have any basis in logic in the real waking reality. But that doesn't matter, because the mechanism of logic still seems to take place through the same motions and process of putting facts together to come out with a logical conclusion that you engage in a conscious discussion in waking reality. In your dream, that same process, it's like the same machinery of logic is still functioning, even though the elements that are put into it are not elements that would make any logical sense in your waking reality. But in your dream, for whatever reason, these things seemingly logic, and it's like you see yourself exercising conscious logic in the dream by putting together things which in that dream reality seemingly have a conscious connection to each other, even though when you wake up and you think, wait a second, those things have no connection with one another at all. But that doesn't matter. The process of logical thinking still takes place, as if it's a pantomime of your waking process, and it also indicates there's different layers of self, because different layers of your self concept and your self identity of who am I, who is speaking, am I, and watching yourself speaking, and the logic of the things that you're speaking. There's like probably dozens of different aspects, at least a dozen different aspects of self that are ordinarily in waking reality all combined into one cohesive unity. But in your dream, they get peeled away like different layers of an onion, and they can be separated in ways that they ordinarily couldn't be separated. So you might, in your dream, be having a conversation with somebody, and you're observing the conversation, but there's a part of yourself that when you're having a real conversation in waking life, waking reality, part of your mind is deliberately, consciously putting together pieces of arguments and logic to formulate a sentence. And that part might be missing in your dream. So when you're awake, you might have a conversation with somebody, you're discussing something, and in your mind you're deliberately assembling the rational arguments or the rational facts of how things go together to make the thing that you're saying make sense. And you're watching, and part of you is watching you, and part of you is recording the conversation or monitoring your own conversation as sort of a spectator. And part of you is the part that's actually producing the conversation and producing the words and coming up with the words to express the concepts. And these are all different aspects of yourself which combine to form one cohesive unity of this is you having this conversation. And in your dream, you might be missing at least one. Often you just have one aspect of that. In your dream, you might be formulating the rational arguments, but the other aspects are missing. For instance, the part of you that's consciously aware of and selecting the arguments, the rational arguments to put together, that might be gone. But you might be observing yourself and hearing yourself putting these thoughts together. So you might say in your dream, well, water and jelly mixed together means that you can't fly. When you wake up, you think that doesn't make sense. And when you were in your dream, you weren't thinking that deliberately, but you could see yourself. You could feel the thought in your head, and you could see or hear yourself expressing the thought without the part of your mind actually deliberately assembling the thought. All these different aspects of self that are sort of peeled out in different layers and dealt out individually in dreams, not necessarily together, make you think about what are the different layers of consciousness, because there are different layers. And when you're having a conversation with somebody, your part of you is seeing yourself having the conversation, and not necessary, and not specifically the part of you that's making the conversation. Then there's the part of you that's making the conversation. Then there's the part of you that's